happen. We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup.
And in the news this week, Alabama's most notorious anti-LGBT bigot is the Republican nominee for U.S. Senate.
But there's some twists and turns here that the mainstream media has not elucidated, so we'll try to do that for you. And we will celebrate the fact that Birmingham, Alabama, is the first place in that state to ban LGBT discrimination.
This week, Republicans once again failed to pass a health care destruction bill, but they're not giving up.
Meanwhile, our federal government has taken two opposing sides, in a big court case to settle whether discrimination based on sexual orientation is sex discrimination.
And a Minnesota federal judge has slapped down a wedding videographer seeking to discriminate against gay couples.
A Trump nominee, who we've told you about before, to the federal bench, spoke at a radical right Kill the Gays conference.
Senator Tammy Baldwin maneuvered there in the Senate to keep funding for our State Department's work on LGBT rights internationally.
Not bad for a member of the minority party in the Senate. A transgender teen, Allie Steinfeld, was the victim of a grisly murder in southern Missouri.
Really horrible.
Yeah.
That North Carolina congregation that we told you about that beat up gay members, well, it's now charged with defrauding the government of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Charming.
In the name of the Lord.
Lovely. The Philippines House unanimously, 198 to nothing.
It's something.
Passed an LGBT rights bill, and it's a very broad bill.
Yes, and we can't do it here.
No, certainly not unanimously.
More persecution of gay people in Egypt, Azerbaijan, Malaysia, and Russia.
And we will share with you Chris Cooper's review of Battle of the Sexes, the Billie Jean King, Bobby Riggs movie. And we'll review a special show we saw on Broadway with Patti LuPone.
Oh, that wish they would do that.
Spoiler alert. Fantastic.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
So Roy Moore, who had been the Chief Justice of Alabama and twice removed, once for insisting on the Ten Commandments on the grounds or in the courtroom, and the other for not enforcing the same-sex marriage law.
Well, in fact, the Ten Commandments was a big monument that he had on the courthouse lawn. Let's not rush through this. He, first of all, the mainstream media is not talking about the fact that he was removed from the bench twice in his career.
They just say he's controversial.
Or
not a bigot. He's a bigot.
Yeah, he got in trouble for the Ten Commandments. That's what they say. They don't say he lost his job on the Alabama Supreme Court twice.
Removed by the state of Alabama.
Exactly. Forced to resign, and the first time was because he refused the higher court's order to get rid of the Ten Commandments as a violation of the separation of church and state. Right. And then he refused a court's order to follow the Supreme Court law in Obergefell that legalized same-sex marriage. He told probate clerks or judges around the state to ignore that and to refuse to marry same-sex couples.
Yeah, we have a state law. And watch out for this guy. He's got a gun.
It's a little gun, though. And well, he was kind of fey in the way he held it up, didn't you think? Here's my gun.
I think he's crazy. Well, and of course, politically, what everybody wants to talk about, he's the extremist, even for Alabama. Is this bad for the Republican Party? And it does give the Democrat somewhat of a better chance. The polls are actually within single digits with the Democrat, Doug Jones. And P.S., for some reason, they're having the election December the 12th.
Very strange. But here are a couple of things. You know, Roy Moore was reelected to the court after he was thrown off the first time for the Ten Commandments case. He got reelected by the voters and then did the marriage case and got thrown off again. But in the meantime, in the midst of all this, he tried to run for governor twice and was defeated twice in Republican primaries. So he is not entirely invincible. Maybe at this point he is. He certainly was a folk hero locally who Luther Strange didn't stand a chance. But Luther Strange also lost because he was mixed up in the whole sex scandal of the governor who appointed him, Bentley, to replace Tom Price.
And as far as the Trump people were concerned, he was somebody who had supported Mitch McConnell, and that was
Strange,
bad.
yes, Luther Strange. And they're scared of Roy Moore because someone said today that Roy Moore will make Rand Paul look like, a Trump loyalist.
Yes.
Roy Moore will really blow up the whole thing. Which is why Trump is trying to sort of co-opt him by saying that actually he thinks he's great. But what I don't get is the mainstream media keeps wanting to extrapolate this to an evaluation of where the Republican Party stands nationally. And I don't think that Roy Moore is a sign of anything nationally because I think he is such a local phenomenon. And I don't, there may be crazy wackos like Roy Moore around the country, but that's not, I think, what this election was about.
The candidates that Trump is pushing to run against the more moderate Republican senators, like Jeff Flake and Dean Heller in Nevada and Jeff Flake in Arizona, these are going to be relative wackos, aren't they?
Well, maybe. And I don't think that's a settled business yet of who he's going to support and who the Republican Party is going to run, and all that has to be sorted out. And certainly they will look at these races in Alabama and to make some of those decisions. But I really think Roy Moore is a unique personality.
An outlier?
Completely.
An outlier, too. Well, he does want to ban sodomy. And, I saw him on the news this morning. He said, saying that, we're ruled over by God, that's just a fact. That's not a religious thing. That's a fact.
Well, he's one of these people, and frankly, so is Jeff Sessions, our Attorney General, who wants the laws of God to replace the laws of the state. So this is going to be very interesting if he does get to the United States Senate. I agree the Democrat has a chance, but it's going to take some big, hard campaigning. And the only thing that really gives me hope of beating Roy Moore in Alabama is the fact that he has lost those gubernatorial primaries.
Yes. And, while Roy Moore wants to make homosexual conduct illegal again, which the Supreme Court could allow again if Trump gets another appointment, a new survey by Gallup says only a fifth of Americans now think gay relations should be illegal. It was 50,
only a fifth.
It was 50-50 as late as 2005, 2 years after the Supreme Court declared that the remaining 13 anti-sodomy laws were unconstitutional. All right, let's give them the good. The good news is from Birmingham, Alabama. The city council passed a comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance for LGBT people, and it too, just like in the Philippines, was unanimous. And this is the first place in the state to offer such protections.
When did you ever think you would hear Birmingham, Alabama, and the Philippines in the same sentence?
Yeah.
Especially unanimously standing up for LGBT rights. Anyway, and in nearby Arkansas, as long as we're down south, a court there also delivered some good news. They're having a fight over whether the town of Fayetteville can keep its non-discrimination law that includes sexual orientation and gender identity.
Yep.
The state, once the town passed that law, passed a state law that said towns cannot pass laws like that because we don't have a state law that protects those people from discrimination, and the towns can't go farther. So they're fighting this out in court, but the court has said while they fight it out, Fayetteville may keep its non-discrimination law. That's actually a big win.
Yes, the ACLU says that the state law is unconstitutional. There are also some local election results from around the country where Democrats won in heavily Republican districts for state legislative seats in Florida and New Hampshire.
Yeah, flipping Republican districts. That's excellent.
People are awake and they know they got to vote.
Well, you know, we're very nervous about the midterms next year, but there are some signs of hope, and hang in there and keep working.
Well, you know, I mentioned that we can't pass a federal gay rights law. You know, the Human Rights Campaign is touting that they now have more than 100 corporate co-sponsors for this thing.
They don't vote.
They don't, not only do they not vote, these same corporations give the money to elect these Republicans to keep their taxes low and keep us from passing our rights bills.
Well, let's see how far they get with that, with the new Trump tax reform, in quotes, proposal.
Well,
Meanwhile,
well, they didn't get their health care proposal, and but I disturbingly read. I thought this was the end of the reconciliation process, where they only need 50 votes to get rid of it. No. They're going to keep bringing it up next year under the reconciliation process to try to kill it.
They can also get rid of the whole 60-vote requirement in the Congress.
Entirely.
And then they don't even need the reconciliation process, because they can just do a majority vote anytime.
Mitch has resisted that. I know Trump wants them to get rid of it. I used to think, yeah, let majority rule, but it'd be nice to be slowing things down a little bit now.
It's all whose ox is gored, isn't it?
We couldn't pass anything under Obama except for the first year when we had 60 votes.
Yep.
All right.
I don't know, but let's go back to Trump, as we always do at the top of the show. Well, before we get to things like the NFL or Vietnam, the Air Force, their enlisted leader, the top enlisted member of the Air Force, came out in support of keeping transgender troops and said, I guess he's African American. He said, there was a time I couldn't serve. There's a time my wife couldn't serve as a woman. I support trans troops. And the head of the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dunford, a Marine, who when Trump first tweeted about this, supported trans troops. It was at a Senate hearing because he needs to be reconfirmed as the head of the Joint Chiefs. And he was asked about it at the Senate hearing, and he again affirmed his full support for allowing trans troops to serve.
Well, so who was Trump talking about when he said he consulted his generals?
I was thinking about that. I thought it was probably General Tire. Or Captain Crunch.
Or General Motors.
General Motors.
Whatever. Well, this is the reason that Ellen said this week that she wouldn't have him on his show because he's
it took her this
rights.
long.
Well, she was asked about it by who was it? It was the woman from Fox who's doing the NBC
Megyn
stuff.
Kelly.
Megyn Kelly.
Oh my God! Have you watched that show?
No, I saw 5 minutes of it this morning, and it was embarrassing on the Today Show.
It makes us look good.
I think we look great. Look. Nice picture.
Well,
Thank
if not
you, Rich.
great, at least a little smarter and livelier than she looks. But this whole NFL thing, all I can think, as I watch Trump talk about how, fire these sons of bitches, throw them out, blah, 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 he's a plantation owner. That's what he is. He is, how dare the darkies stand up and fight for themselves? Don't they know their place? Right. Blah, 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 blah.
That's what it's all about.
He is a plantation owner.
He's a racist dog.
Yeah.
And this is not a partisan statement, because we're a nonpartisan show.
But I did wonder about the legality of firing people. It's interesting. We sit here week after week and we say to the right wing that is arguing for its own free speech rights in corporate settings that, I'm sorry, the free speech clause of the Constitution protects you from government punishment. It does not protect you in a private corporate setting. And so I was wondering if these NFL players, who everybody's yelling, free speech, if they really have that protection. And of course they don't.
They don't, no. The owners could stop them, but they're not going to, because what percentage, the majority of their players are young men of color. And, they've got to maintain some...
Well, they can see what is going on, although a majority of the American people are against these guys taking a knee, and that's quite discouraging. But it's
creating cognitive dissonance.
They do not have legal free speech protections, but they do. Sports Illustrated had a very good article about this, because I Googled NFL players, free speech protection. And up came a Sports Illustrated article that addressed this very question and went into the legality of that, and then talked about the contracts they have and whether they were protected under their specific contracts for speaking out. And the bottom line was that they could make an argument about being fired inappropriately, but the owners have the right to fire them for bringing disrepute on the league, and that the owners could interpret that any way they wanted. And so these guys really are, of course, subject to firing. And what Trump is asking is not illegal. There are a lot of people yelling at him and saying that's illegal. It's not illegal.
There is some law about elected officials or public officials trying to get involved in firing people in the private sector and things like that. But
sure, and of course the NFL. Does the NFL have monopoly exemption from the federal government, or is that just baseball, or is that? Well, there may be federal government involvement that would also complicate matters, but it's trickier. Right. And of course, watching this whole Vietnam series, which is depressing me all over again, 40, 50 years later.
It's hard to watch.
It is hard to watch for a number of reasons. It's hard to relive the war for those of us old enough to remember it, and to watch those killings at Kent State all over again when I was in college and graduating at the time, and part of those colleges that were on strike.
And the murders, that soldiers started committing, like My Lai, and then how they started killing, and how they started killing their own officers.
I didn't think they spent nearly enough time on fragging. But it just reinforces everything I always thought then and still think now about how we never should have been there. But
even my right-wing brother Johnny is watching it, and he said, they died for people. He was over there, and he volunteered. And he says everybody died for nothing, for the egos of a series of presidents from Truman to Nixon.
So 50 years later, now people are seeing that. But again, as with what we were just discussing with Trump, the majority of the American people supported that war.
Well, they showed how Nixon rallied people behind the flag, basically, and against liberals and that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter that we were right in the long run.
So I think Ken Burns has done a very mixed job on this.
Yes.
On the one hand, there's a lot there to look at, and he does, you can pick out the facts that he gets right. But overall, it seems to me far too sympathetic to the U.S. At one point he quotes someone saying, if Creighton Abrams had been the general instead of Westmoreland, some people think we could have won that war.
Oh, God.
Won that war.
Crazy.
We shouldn't have been there. We shouldn't have killed anybody. We shouldn't have been killed. We should have stayed out of it or supported the North Vietnamese in their fight for liberation.
Anti-communist hysteria.
Oh, my God.
All right. Well, let's go back to the United States, where there's a very important case before the Second Circuit of our federal courts, which is right here in New York.
Yes.
And they heard this case en banc, which is the skydiver case where he was discriminated against because he was gay, and he is
fired.
He was and he was arguing that this is sex discrimination. This is a lambda legal case.
He was a skydiver. He had a female client whose partner or husband or whatever was worried that she was going to be strapped in tight to this guy. And he said to her, "Oh, don't worry, I'm 100% gay." And the husband, partner, boyfriend lodged a complaint with the employer, and he ended up getting fired for being gay. Why that was offensive, I don't know, but that was the case. And he later died in a skydiving accident, but his survivors are pursuing this case that he was fired inappropriately and trying to cite Title VII, I guess, of the Civil Rights Act to say that the prohibition against sex discrimination includes sexual orientation discrimination.
So this is what the EEOC has been saying. They've been saying it longer about transgender, but they say it about gay people now. This is a federal agency, and you still have enough holdovers there for about 5 seconds who still believe this and are fighting for that. The new appointees from Trump do not believe this and will not commit to that in their hearings. So But then the Justice Department gratuitously got involved in the case, and they come in the court and they say no, 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 and then so the judges are saying, well, what's going on here? Why haven't you figured this out? And
why are two parts of the federal government arguing against
silence.
each other on this?
Silence at that point.
Well, the DOJ guy says, I can't discuss our differences of opinions. I can't discuss any discussions we've had.
Well, you won't even say what do your rank and file lawyers in the Justice Department say about this. No, to be fair,
we know what they feel.
To be fair, the Obama administration had not gotten involved in these cases yet, and the Justice Department.
But they were beginning to
Yes.
adopt that point of view.
So, I mean, I've read the analysis. I mean, this is a very important thing because
Sure.
This is the kind of, if we can settle this while Kennedy is still there. Can we do this? Can we get this to the Supreme Court before the end of the term? I don't know.
No.
No?
No.
Well, all right. Well, because there's becoming a split in the circuits on this, because we have won some of these cases. Anyway, and it looks good on this one. But our lawyers are essentially arguing that when you fire, a male employee because he marries a man, that is sex discrimination. The Justice Department says, oh, but you don't call somebody. I mean, you call somebody who opposes interracial marriage a racist, but you don't call somebody who opposes gay marriage a sexist.
They also said, well, we would treat gay men and lesbians the same. So it's not, preferring one sex over the other. That's what sexism is.
Well, and they're also dealing with the whole fact that there's a history of the court ruling in favor of stopping sex stereotyping. And that's what...
That's all part of it.
Et cetera. All right.
So anyway, we will follow...
very, very important case.
Yes, and we'll let you know how that goes.
Hope it moves fast.
Also important, the State Department came up for hearing its budget in the Appropriations Committee in the Senate. Senator Tammy Baldwin, the only out LGBT person in the United States Senate from Wisconsin, did try. Her goal was to attach some things to the State Department Appropriations bill, and she succeeded, even though she is a Democrat and a member of the minority party. So she succeeded in keeping the special envoy for LGBTI human rights, the LGBTI part of the U.S. Agency for International Development, the country reports annually talking about LGBTI rights and abuses, and money for the Global Equity Fund.
Correct. I hope she does something to the Education Department because, we told you about how they're changing their rules about campus sexual misconduct, but they also stripped out all the gay language that was in there as if it has nothing to do with us. Mm-hmm. And we heard more about this Trump nominee, Jeff Mateer, who was up for a federal court in Texas. He spoke at the 2015 Radical Right Kill the Gays conference, where people stood up and called for the death penalty. People stood up and called for the death penalty for homosexuality because that's in the Bible.
Didn't Trump or Pence or Cruz spoke there?
Now, the thing is, here's what, I'll say it again. It's great to see McCain and Senator
Paul and Collins.
Collins anyway. Of these people who were standing up on health care, who are standing up. But why don't they stand up against these extreme bigots? That's the problem. It is a problem. But it's not a problem in Minnesota, where we're a district judge, federal district judge there, sort of a case like the Masterpiece Bake Shop case, which is there before this cake shop case, which is before the Supreme Court. This was a videographer for weddings who said, "This is my expression," and this judge Tunheim really went after them and said, "No, none of that stuff. We've had a human rights law here since 1993. You're violating it. Everybody can claim that they're being expressive in their work. You're not being asked to celebrate it. You're just being asked to perform the service you offer to everybody."
Well, what he said was that you're saying that they have a right to their content, but the reality is that they're discriminating against people, and they're discriminating against those people on the basis of their sexual orientation. And that is against the law, and it is not obviated by federal religious freedom laws. this is discrimination and you are not allowed to do it. And the Alliance Defending Freedom, which was defending the videographers, can go away because this is not right.
And in Montana, you know, the state legislature didn't want to do a referendum on transgender, you know, using the locker rooms, gender at birth, all that kind of stuff. The legislature didn't want to do it, so the people are arguing for it. They've got the right-wing groups there. They need to get 26,000 signatures. And the Montana Supreme Court said, the way you're phrasing this is you got to rewrite the ballot language. Yeah. Well, if they get only 26,000 signatures, but it is a small state, they can be on the ballot in November 2018.
In Iowa, the ACLU is representing 2 trans women who are suing for coverage of their medically necessary surgery by Medicaid. The state has a law against discrimination on the basis of gender identity or expression, and so they may actually win that case in Iowa. In California, here's a strange one. Camille Lenoir is suing. She's from California. She's bringing this suit in California, but she says she was given an oral offer of a job by New Mexico State University, and that offer was withdrawn for her to be an assistant coach for basketball because she came out as ex-gay and anti-gay and anti-sports as a product of Satan.
Competition comes from Satan, not from God. Now you want a job coaching in sports, and you're saying this?
Seems a little disingenuous.
So it doesn't matter how you coach because God's going to decide who wins the game.
It's a little complex. So New Mexico State is saying, well, it wasn't a real job offer because it was an oral offer, and it didn't go through our process of publishing a job opening notice and
but she's claiming things. Sexual orientation discrimination.
Yes, she is.
As a new non-gay person.
It's getting to be quite a minefield.
Yes, well, there were always cases like that in the past.
Yes, now.
And then you know, that we told you about that church in North Carolina where the members beat up the gay person. Well, it turns out that they were telling people, if you're becoming poor, you're not tithing enough. Well, just pad the payroll here with other people who will be. Well, let me get the.
Please.
Yeah. Let me get the exact thing. Oh, they said, they issued fake. Oh, I thought that was off. They issued fake claims, some filed by business owners' wives and other family members, to divert hundreds of thousands of tax dollars to the church over a 6-year period.
What is the church getting tax dollars for in the first place?
Right, hundreds of thousands of dollars. All right.
Seems ugly. All right, some sad news. In southern Missouri, the town of Houston, Missouri, a trans teen, Allie Steinfeld, 17 years old, brutally murdered.
Awful story.
Burned by, we have a picture of Allie, I believe. And we also have a picture of the 3 perpetrators.
And there's a 4th, I think, who got indicted as well.
Yeah, the original 3 they're the original perpetrators, 1 man, 2 women.
Well, I mean, the women told authorities that one of the others gouged out Steinfeld's eyes, stabbed her in the genitals, and bragged about the killing. Now, you know, this is all part of this anti-transgender hysteria, which has been whipped up by people like Donald Trump, President of the United States, and others, and all the people who make political hay out of persecuting transgender people.
Also violent, but a little less dire in the end. In the gay Capitol Hill neighborhood in Seattle, Washington, a trans woman was sitting peacefully in a restaurant in the middle of the night, having a meal. And these 3 men start harassing her and ended up assaulting her when she objected. And this is considered quite shocking there because there it is in the middle of the gay neighborhood.
And in Glen Falls, New York, now New York is covered, transgender is covered by an executive order by the governor. 2 transgender students were kicked off the bus because the bus driver said, okay, boys over there, girls over there. And these 2 transgender kids wanted to sit with the people with the 2 male identifying, wanted to sit with the boys, and the driver threw them off the bus. And so this had, the school district is apologizing profusely and promising training.
Well, that's nice. And a sad story from the Bronx in New York, where an 18-year-old high school student described as flamboyant, that's about the best description we have, had been harassed and bullied by fellow students, and just ended up stabbing one of her harassers dead and severely injuring another one with the knife because they just didn't want to take it anymore.
And you might want to think twice about using the services of KB Home, one of the largest home builders in the country. The head of the company, Jeff Metzger, lives next door to Kathy Griffin, and apparently her boyfriend called in a complaint about some noise next door, so he calls up and uses all these horrible anti-lesbian profanities. Called her a bald dyke and the C word and a bunch of other things. And the board of KB Home took away his bonus and warned him.
Part of his bonus,
not to do it again. Yeah.
Not the whole bonus,
no.
Just part of the bonus. All right, can we move on to international news, or do you have?
I think we can. I think we can. Yes, let's do that.
All right. All right. Well, let's start with the Philippines. They have a proposal in their legislature for a non-discrimination law, including sexual orientation and gender identity. It's very, very broad.
Yes, and it penalizes gender profiling, denying or revoking a professional license, except a marriage license issued by the government, denying access to public services, including military service, refusing admission or expelling a person from an educational or training institution, denying a person access to public or private medical or other health services open to the public. Very broad. They have a transgender lawmaker there from Bataan who's in there and said that, I mean, it's sort of, I wish I knew the whole story. How did this happen?
Well,
this is
that lawmaker talked about how they realized, and I think he or she gave a very...
Geraldine,
thank you. She spoke to the legislature about how bad their past behavior had been and how long overdue.
Yes. Another legislator said, too many have died simply because of who they are and who they love, which is what we were just talking about with this violence against trans. I mean, that's what you want to stop. Where is the outrage? Where's the outrage from the president, who's upset about all these people taking the knee, about the way African Americans and Latinos are being treated in this country, like in Puerto Rico?
I was just going to say, if he can't get outraged about that, because it's out in the middle of the sea, the big sea.
But anyway, Philippines, so they're not doing marriage yet, and they still have Duterte as their leader.
But even in the face of that, they passed this in the House 198 to nothing. It still has to go to the Senate. We will certainly keep an eye on that. But this was an extremely heartening piece of news. And in the same part of the world, in Hong Kong, the Court of Appeals there has okayed a dependent visa to the lesbian spouse of a Hong Kong woman. They had been rejected previously by the Immigration Department on the grounds that Hong Kong doesn't recognize same-sex marriage, but again, they're legally married. One of them is from Hong Kong, and they have every right to this, and now the court has said, yes, you can have that.
In Australia, we've been telling you about this postal ballot, non-binding, that there is underway on same-sex marriage, which is, creating some ugliness. But also, you have young people saying things like, I'm not entirely sure where the post boxes are. My father will know.
Yeah, they also say that the polls are slipping, that the no support is climbing because the religious right is running ads saying, this is a violation of our free speech and religious freedom.
So it's still at 58% to 33% our way.
We've lost votes like that.
45% are saying they will vote and 8% they pro. Among those who've already voted, 72% have voted yes and 26 no. So,
so they
I'm not going to say I'm not worried, but the deadline is November 7th. But we've told you that the leader of this fight to ban same-sex marriage is Tony Abbott, the right-wing former prime minister.
Who has a lesbian sister who wants to marry her longtime partner.
And he has a daughter named Frances Abbott who did a video talking about where she stands. People are speaking up within their families, and
poor Tony Abbott, he seems quite isolated in his family. He's got a lesbian sister, he's got a daughter.
He has God on his side.
You know my answer, men.
Yes, you're entirely right. Yeah. Although, could name some Vicky Hastert from Missouri.
I exaggerate.
All right. But no, you're right. It's men.
Staying in that part of the world, in Malaysia.
Well, we don't have to leave Australia because the Defense Force there has recruited personnel who don't identify as male or female, including one of the nation's first gender-neutral cadets.
Exactly. But nearby in Malaysia, they're supposed to have a big white party, gay party on December 28th. They banned that. And they were supposed to have a pre-party this weekend on September 30th. They banned that. So we'll see whether those bans stand up or whether people show up anyway.
That's outrageous. And then even more outrageous is what's going on in Egypt. Some people went to a concert of the band, the Lebanese band, Mashru Laila, which has a lead singer who's openly gay.
Yes.
And some of them were waving rainbow flags, and the media got upset about this, and some of the prosecutors got upset. So they arrested 7 people. They're detaining them for 15 days. Then they conducted one of these stings where they use the dating apps that gay men use or others use. And by the way, they're going to examine the guys who are being detained for see if they've had anal sex. They're going to go up their rectums.
And they've arrested them for promoting sexual deviancy.
And this other kid was caught. He was one of the people who was there. He was caught, they say, in the act of debauchery after being lured. He's been sentenced to 6 years in prison already. And the police are using fake profiles to do this. It's a perilous country, as is Azerbaijan.
I was moving to Azerbaijan, moving up geographically. Cops there arrested, beat, and tortured dozens of gay men and transgender people. They're not that far from Chechnya. And it's been called the worst place for LGBT people in Europe. They say, oh, we didn't arrest these people because they're gay or trans. We arrested them because they're prostitutes and they have HIV and STDs. And
often they wouldn't let you go unless you gave them the names of other members of the community, or at least made up some names. It's just, some of them have already been sentenced to either 20 or 30 days of administrative detention.
We're a little concerned also about what's happening in Germany with the election there, giving power to the far-right anti-immigrant Alliance for Germany.
Led not by a man, but a lesbian.
Well, co-led. There is a man in his 70s who's the main leader, and a lesbian in her 30s, Alice Weidel, 38, 2 kids, partner. She used to work for Goldman Sachs, and now she's the co-leader of the far-right party in Germany.
Well, they're having controversies here domestically about, how to deal with gays and Jews who want to be part of the alt-right.
But all is not lost in that part of the world. In far north Norway, in a town called Kirkenes, they held their first Pride Parade. This is inside the Arctic Circle, by the way. I looked it up on a map. They hold this lovely parade in Norway, and they're joined by dozens of people who cross the border from Russia to join the parade.
Belarus and Kazakhstan, because they can't do this stuff back home.
Yep.
So
that was nice.
That was great.
And now moving farther west back over to Canada, Newfoundland is drafting a gender-neutral birth certificate bill. They were threatened with a lawsuit over this, but because they are now saying, all right, we'll do a bill. the lawsuit is on hold.
But Canada has permanently banned Chelsea Manning from entering the country.
Bad.
And they
bad,
brought
bad,
this
bad.
up to our boyfriend Justin Trudeau, and he said, "I need to learn more about this."
Ugh. The people banning Chelsea, the immigration people, are saying, if she did what she did to the United States here, she would have been convicted of treason. And she's a convicted felon, so we're not letting her in Canada.
She paid her debt to society.
Yes, she did. And some of us do not think it was treason.
A Russian human rights activist is going to face a trial for promoting the homosexual agenda. He's that crackdown continues under Putin.
In Colombia, the Constitutional Court has okayed gender changes by minors on their documents.
And we told you about the judge in Brazil who said, no, it's okay to have conversion therapy. Well, thousands of people in several cities. We have a picture.
We have a picture of Sao Paulo.
Yes.
Thousands showed up to protest. Thousands. Look at that.
This was, hey.
Thank you.
Colombia's Constitutional Court
just
did
talked
that,
about that.
And you can drive in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
And the Prime Minister, the Premier of Taiwan, did we do that?
No.
Does say that they're going to legalize same-sex marriage. They're working on it.
Okay.
All right.
Ready anytime you are.
AIDS news.
Yeah. The Trump administration is demanding that poor countries raise the prices of pharmaceutical drugs.
What a nice present for National Gay Men's HIV and AIDS Awareness Day.
But meanwhile, the Gates Foundation and others are guaranteeing the purchase of generic drugs for millions of people around the world with HIV, and they're going to supply them for $75 a year.
They're
to
capping
people.
The price.
Yes, and putting together a package of drugs that is sort of up to date and effective and fewer side effects. And the reason they've put in this guarantee, and they're starting with drugs for Africa, but they're going to expand it to 92 countries, is they need to re-energize the generic production in India. Because the generic pharmaceutical industry in India has been suppressed in recent years because of things like the United States refusing to support generic drugs and wanting, to support our own brand name pharmaceutical companies. So the Gates Foundation and these others are trying to switch that around again, re-energize the industry, and by guaranteeing these modern drugs, also combat resistance to HIV drugs around the world. So that's a good thing.
That's a good thing, and it's good to protect yourself from HIV and treat yourself for HIV. But in the meantime, the CDC says that they saw a record high 2 million STI diagnoses in 2016. Gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia. All these things are on the rise, especially among gay men who are using PrEP, so they're protected from HIV.
I'm sure that's one part of it, not all of it. But drug-resistant gonorrhea is emerging in men who have sex with men.
Yes.
Also, this 2 million count of sexually transmitted infections does not include HIV. And is considered a vast undercount. This is the tip of the iceberg. So really, PrEP, great, but ongoing protection against sexually transmitted infections, very important.
We followed the case of Michael Johnson in Missouri, the former college wrestler who was sentenced to, for 30 years originally. Well, they declared a new trial and they made a plea, and he's got a 10-year sentence.
Only 10 years
Only
in prison
10 years.
for having sex without disclosing his HIV status. This is the criminalizing of sex with HIV is a tragedy and a scandal in this country and around the world, and yet it persists because of fear and stigmatization and racism and homophobia and all of that.
Entertainment news?
Well, I have a segue story from AIDS to entertainment news. There's a new slasher movie, horror movie called Jigsaw opening.
What, is that like Saw?
Probably. But they've got an ad campaign going where they advertise it as all types welcome, meaning all people welcome. They're playing off the ban on gay men donating blood for a bloody movie, and they have an ad campaign that uses trans people and gay people and social media. It's all just an ad campaign for this movie, but it's interesting that this is now considered a positive to sell a movie.
All right.
Strange.
Speaking of movies, Chris Cooper, your sacrificial moviegoer, we'll put his full review into our email. You can write to me, you can go to our website and sign up for our emails, and you will get these emails where we put these little extras in.
And where is our website, Andy?
www.gayusatv.org. Just gayusatv.org. There it is. It's on the screen.
Yeah.
But Chris Cooper liked the Battle of the Sexes. He says, in the best sports movie tradition, their intertwined fates all come down to the final match in which the movies score an ace. This is Billie Jean King, played by Emma Stone, versus Bobby Riggs, played by Steve Carell. So we haven't seen the movie yet, but I'd like to.
Well, I'm still recommending the HBO, the documentary playing on HBO, Billie Jean King, Portrait of a Pioneer, which I think is really good.
Yeah.
All right, other movies. Opening in New York on October 4th and LA on October 6th is a documentary called Chavela, made by my old ACT UP colleague, Catherine Gund, and others. It's the story of Chavela Vargas, who was an out lesbian, magnificent singer originally from Costa Rica, but mostly in Mexico. Born in 1919 and had this fantastic career and slept with Ava Gardner and Frida Kahlo and...
You getting all this down?
It was close to Pedro Almodovar, who helped regenerate her career all over Europe. It's a fascinating documentary. It's won a lot of awards. Great historic footage, and all based on an interview with her in 1991 when she was 72. She died in 2012. But it's a really important and fascinating documentary.
That sounds good.
Chavela, Chavela.
Sounds good. We are going to go see The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson tonight as we sit here. David Francis documentary about the transgender homeless person who was part of Stonewall, everything else, who died under mysterious circumstances.
Well, that's what the movie is. It's a murder mystery, and it's opening in theaters and Netflix on October 5th and 6th, and we have a clip from the movie that we would like to share with you.
Hi, my name is Victoria Cruz. I'm working for the Anti-Violence Project. I'm working on a reopened case on the Marsha P. Johnson case that was, she was found in 1992 by Christopher Street Pier.
Right.
Can I meet with you in reference to this particular case?
Definitely not.
Because?
Because I'm retired from the NYPD and you're calling me at work.
Can we meet outside of your job?
No, definitely not. I don't want to meet in regards to anything.
He didn't want to tell me anything about the case. He doesn't want to look back.
I can't control what people say to you.
I
don't know who you represent. I don't even know if you are who you say you are. Are you a lawyer?
No, I'm not.
You a private investigator?
No.
I've got to give you a little advice. Don't play detective yourself, all right? Leave this to the people that should handle it.
I think at the time...
Welcome to New York!
Yes, I think at the time they tried to dismiss it as a suicide, right?
They did. That was their official...
It was found in the river.
Yeah. You would think people would want to get the answer to questions like this, but Clearly not. And yes, this is the New York we're familiar with, and I can't wait to see the movie. That's just a tiny little taste of it.
And we're so glad we got to see Patti LuPone being interviewed and singing with Seth Rudetsky as a benefit for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS. They raised almost $300,000. There they are at Sardi's at the after party. What a show. I mean, of course, she's been in everything.
Well, they did it on a Broadway stage, on the stage where she is currently in War Paint with Christine Ebersol, and it was Seth is really, he's very impressive as a Broadway expert and an obsessive fan of Patti's.
He does Sirius Radio, the theater show. So,
yeah.
Yes.
And he, as you started to say, knows everything about her. And she has done everything. So it was...
Well, I mean, the people should know what she's done. I mean, Evita, Les Mis, Company, Oliver, War Paint's still running. Anything goes. Sunset Boulevard. And she's told such great stories. And she told a great story about revivals, where she said, I don't like these directors. When you come in, they want it to be like it was the last time, and they want you to do everything like that. Give you a chance to discover the role yourself. I thought it was very insightful.
It was, and she said it several times in different contexts. The directors try to impose a performance on the new cast that is doing the revival of the old show.
And she also says she looks at the audience when she's acting. You're not supposed to do that. She looks at the audience, but she says you have to win them over. She says you have to relax them. It's about them. It's about the audience, and everybody applauded.
So it was a lot of talking, but it was also a lot of singing, and a lot of guest stars coming on to recreate their performances with her. I had two favorites.
Okay.
At one point, they talk about how she used to say, anyway, that all the good roles were written for men. And less so these days, but that, for a long time, that was the truth. And she was upset about that and angry about that. So he said, okay, hit it. And she does the Trouble in River City from The Music Man. It was astonishing. It's the most, rap 50 years ago. It's a great song, and she
Trouble.
She had every lyric nailed, which she did not in the other songs, but she had this perfect, and she brought the audience into it, and the audience knew perfectly when to come in and do the chorus. It was thrilling, as you say, to hear that.
Yes.
And the other one I loved was I thought she did spectacularly The Ladies Who Lunch from Company.
Yes.
And she's going to be in a new production of Company.
Yes.
But I thought she really was, her voice was right for that these days.
She's quite the human being. I mean, she's so honest. We can't repeat some of the things that she said.
And really, congratulations and thanks to Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS for putting this on. They should do more things like this. It was really spectacular.
Yes. Okay. What else? Well, I was very much looking forward to seeing Ellen Burstyn, one of my favorite actresses, because she's in As You Like It, Shakespeare's As You Like It, and this is the opening production of Classic Stage Company's new season with John Doyle, a director I respect. This was one of the worst things I've seen. It was just, it was a total waste of her, and even though Andre DeShields played Touchstone, sorry about it, but it was torture.
I hope we don't feel that way about the return of Will and Grace this week. You will probably have seen it by the time you see this. We haven't seen it yet, but some critics have, and of course they've been going around doing a lot of interviews. Vanity Fair's critic called it a surprisingly welcome and wistful return. We'll let you know last week what we think. BBC America's starting an 8-part series called Queers, starting on October 11th, National Coming Out Day, and there are going to be 8 films by a lot of prominent Actually,
gay
there
people.
are 8 short films that are all going to air on that day.
Oh, right. And will be available on October 12th on VOD.
Video on demand.
Yes, so...
and on bbcamerica.com.
You've got Alan Cumming, Ben Whishaw, Russell Tovey, Rebecca Front. I mean, quite a crew.
They're celebrating the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Sexual Offenses Act, which actually was a partial decriminalization of homosexuality.
It basically said, you shouldn't, as long as there's just 2 people in the house and they're doing it and nobody else sees it and knows about it, that's okay. But we don't want them coming out and holding hands. And they were arresting people for kissing on the street until well into the 80s over there. So it was a partial decriminalization.
Yeah, and it is October 11th, of course, is also National Coming Out Day here,
Yes.
and will be celebrated in part by the raising of a rainbow flag in Sheridan Square here in New York, outside the Stonewall Inn, where, believe it or not, even though it is now a national park, there has never been a rainbow flag flying on the flagpole there.
Well, we'll see what the Egyptian authorities have to say about that.
Noon on October 11th at Sheridan
Or
Square.
the American authorities when they get wind of it. Because, you know, the right wing wanted to declassify the Stonewall as a National Historic Monument if they could.
Yeah.
That was one of their demands. But speaking of coming out, Mr. Nasty has come out. Gordon Thompson, who played Adam Carrington, which was not the gay character, that was Stephen Carrington, who was only sometimes gay. Anyway, Gordon Thompson has come out. Gordon Thompson has come out. There is what he looks now on the right. What an interview of him talking. He says why he didn't come out. He's 72 years old now.
Repellent.
He said, when you're an actor, you're a source of fantasy. Ian McKellen and Derek Jacobi are nice, wonderful people. But pardon me, how many audience members fantasize about effing either one of them? And then, all right, so then they bring up Matt Bomer, he says, oh yeah, he's attractive, but he's got a rich husband. He can do whatever he wants. Oh, man.
Really? One of the worst interviews I've ever read. In fact, I'm sorry you imposed that on me. I would like that 20 minutes back, please. Thank you, no thank you. All right, some better things to look forward to. This weekend and for about the next 10 days in Atlanta, they will be holding the 30th annual Out on Film Atlanta LGBT Film Festival. To be followed the next week by their Pride Fest. But September 28th through October 8th, the Atlanta Out on Film Festival with many, many interesting and wonderful component films, including The Death and Life of Marsha P. Johnson and a lot of other stuff. And then shortly thereafter in New York, will be New Fest, October 19th through 24th. For both these festivals, you can go online and get tickets and see what the whole lineup is.
For the New York Festival, it's newfest.org. Newfest.org.
All right. In fact, we have a little video teaser for the New York Festival that will show you some clips of this.